Welcome to the Over the Hump Podcast, your gateway to the world of the iconic Brahman breed of cattle. At BRC Ranch, our passion for Brahman cattle runs deep. Join us as we delve into the heart of this extraordinary breed, unveiling its rich history, exploring industry trends, and sharing captivating stories that define the American Brahman. BRC Ranch stands as the pinnacle of Brahman excellence in America, boasting a decade-long legacy of champions and housing the finest Brahman bulls worldwide. It's not just about cattle, it's about a legacy that reverberates across ranches and hearts. Brought to you by BRC Ranch, where the Brahman legacy thrives and stories are woven into the very fabric of ranching. This is Over the Hump. And now your hosts, Brendan Cutrer, Rachel Cutrer, and Keaton Dodd.
Hey guys, today y'all are in for a real treat with this podcast interview with Hannah Hicks. She's a breeder of Brahman, Sardo Negro, Gujarat, Gir, and Indo Brazil cattle. You may have seen her around at stock shows. She's got gorgeous, big red hair, and she's been known to wear American flag pattern Rocky Mountain jeans with little red leather stamped on the back of her belt. You can't miss her. We'll talk about her path of getting into cattle, selling a bull to Randy Travis, as in the forever and ever amen kind of Randy Travis, and about the challenges and opportunities of being a woman who stands out in the cattle business. Hope y'all enjoy. Hey guys, welcome to today's episode of Over the Hump Podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Cutrer, and today's episode is a podcast all about girl power in the Brahman breed, or in the Bos Indicus breed, I would say. So with that introduction, I'm happy to have with us Hannah Hicks as our guest today. So welcome, Hannah.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I've been really excited.
Yeah, I have to ask, have you listened to any of the podcast episodes?
I actually have. I've tried to be pretty regular on listening because I've always just looked up to you and especially y'all's business and how well y'all have excelled with Brahman. Is just, I've always want to take any word I can from you, any advice. And so anything I can get, I'm getting all the information I can get.
Oh, thank you. So you and I met last year at the Bos Indicus International, but you are sort of relatively new, at least to the Brahman and Bos Indicus breed, right?
Oh, extremely, I would say. Very new.
Okay, so I'm going to say this, but I don't say it in a way that's offensive. But when people meet you, you are one of a kind. You know, your hair, your style. The first time we met was at the Bos Indicus International, and I remember you were wearing American flag jeans. And I thought to myself, well, okay, I haven't been able to wear American flag attire since the mid 90s, but thanks to having kids. But as soon as I kind of saw you from a distance, I was like, this is a person I really want to meet because I can tell that you're so passionate really about everything that you do. So if we would just kind of to get started, can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you grew up, where you came from, and ultimately how you decided to get into the Brahman and Bos Indicus breed?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's really funny how I got into it because my whole entire life, I've always been a horse girl. I was a barrel racer. I did all the play days. I have all the horse experience you could ever want. So this was only just 5 years ago, my first time I was ever around cattle, which is crazy to say. It was 5 years ago this year, and it was Hereford with a Brahman bull over it. So it's a beautiful, nice F1 program. I can never talk enough good things about Tiger Stripes and just that good cross. But what got my love for it was just the Brahman bull, just how they give such hybrid vigor. And honestly, that bull was just so gentle because you hear all people always talking about, oh, Bramers, they're mean, they're high headed, which, yeah, they definitely can be. But just the passion that I just got from that first little summer, having those calves dropping, having just that experience, just literally made me fall 10 toes, head and just in love with the cattle and just everything about it. So whenever I got to research about Brahman, man, I fell down a deep rabbit hole. Let's just say that. And anytime I find something and I am all about it, I put my heart to it, I put everything into it. So I researched and let's see here. I think I bought my very first. My people would laugh at me too. My very first cattle purchase was my bull, and people were Oh, you can't buy a bull, you can't be a Brahmin bull. I mean, hey, but yeah, just 5 years ago, I just got in the cattle business and fell down the rabbit hole.
Yeah. So where is your ranch located?
I'm just in Denison, Texas. I'm born and raised in Denison, Texas. It's the last little town you cross over the Red River into Oklahoma. And honestly, it's a beautiful little town. It has a little bit of country out there, and it's the horse country, let's say, of the area. It's where the horses are and everything. So when I got into the Brahman and cattle, it's just a whole different program whenever you have it that I won't say that far north because we have plenty of people up there. It's not like Brenham and College Station and all the beautiful Brahmin country that's there.
Mhm. Yeah. If you remember, what was your original like gateway into the Brahmin? Was it seeing them on Facebook or seeing them at a show?
Yes, ma'am. So it was literally just like my first time ever seeing a Brahmin bull in person was my friend's program and me helping them out. And that was like my only experience ever with cattle. Brahmin was just seeing that bull for the first time in person. Cause like I've seen statues. My mother has a 1950s style, Brahmin porcelain bull she's had since she got married. So I've like always looked at like that. That's such a cool animal, but I just never got the itch, about cattle until I actually started getting hands-on experience working with them. And it was just eye-opening to me to be like, wow, how have I gone my whole life with horses and dogs and chickens and everything, but not have experienced cattle and specifically Brahman and Bos Indicus breeds. And I mean, it's been life-changing. The people I've met, the experience I've gained, just even just getting work ethic, man, because if you didn't have much work having a ranch and cattle, it will sure put some work ethic in you.
Yes. So do you keep your cattle right there at your home place where you live, or do you have them off site somewhere?
So we're kind of doing a little bit of both. We have my main herd over in the house in Denison, Texas. But since me and my fiance are moving everything to Oklahoma because we just recently bought 110 acres, we've been slowly kind of transferring everything to our new property in Oklahoma. So it's kind of 50-50 right now. It's kind of a weird position. We're in the middle of a move, so we're trying to find the right places for everything as we get going.
So you mentioned a minute ago that you got your first Brahmin 5 years ago, and now today you're buying 110 acres in Oklahoma, and that's an amazing just journey and track that I think is inspiring and exciting to our listeners because we talk about this a lot that people there is a stigma out there that if you want to be successful in the cattle business, you have to have been born into it or inherited a ranch or things like that. And you didn't. You have completely broken that stigma and you're on an amazing track. What's the last 5 years looked like? Like to with starting with buying one Brahmin bull and then when did you decide to add more? And
So it's kind of a really funny story. So I had my first brown bull. It was just a 6 month old weaned bull calf, and that first month that I had him before I got anything else, I was having my own uncle. I was having family. I was having my own friends that had been in the cattle and horse business. Literally, I don't want to say it negatively, but man, they were talking me down. They're saying exactly what you're saying. You have to have family. You have to been born into it. You got to have at least more help because man, I'm 5 foot, 100 pounds, and I've been doing this, by myself for as much as I could. And it was honestly just for the building that what happened. Let's see here the best way. In the last 5 years, the number one thing, because I had a great mentor when I first got into this, because I was like, well, I have a bull. Let me pick out a ranch and let me get all this. Well, my mentor, he was more on the business side of things. He's like, you have to build a brand. You have to be good at social media. You have to be good at marketing. And I really devote a bunch of my just success and just being able to grow just from social media and being able to market and have success in that area.
yeah, your social media is huge. And maybe that kind of leads us into the next topic I want to talk about because a couple of weeks ago you were all over social media because you sold a calf to Randy Travis. You want to tell us about that?
Oh my gosh, that's going to probably be one of my proudest moments for a long, long time coming. So, and it's really, really crazy because the calf that Randy Travis ended up buying was my first bull calf I ever produced myself. So it's kind of a big, like, groundbreaking, like wow moment because I've heard, even from my own cattle friends, okay, you got going, you got some bred cows, you got things going. Your first calf is not always going to be the best. They're pre-warning me, so I was fully ready. Like, okay, well, might have to send a couple to the sale barn. But back in October, I had a very nice man named Riley message me, and of course, I was like, okay, Riley, he's down in Tioga, Texas. Great. Well, Riley ended up being Randy Travis's stepson. And I did not know, honestly. So every time Riley would say, well, Randy would love to come see him this weekend, and Mary would, I would just, it flew over my head. I did not think about it. So whenever they came that one October evening and they pulled up in their Range Rover, windows tinted out, me and my fiance were just like, oh, cool, great. They're coming to see their calf. Nothing, didn't think much of it. 30 minutes go by. I've been walking out in the pasture with Mary Travis. She is the most amazing, loving, wonderful woman. I couldn't think of a better, just godly woman. And we just walked around talking, and then she just looked at me. It's like, I think Randy Travis wants to say hi to you. And I'm like, Randy Travis? Excuse me? So she's like, yeah, let's go to the window. So I'm still just kind of awestruck. I'm like, are you kidding me? Really? So we go over to the passenger window, and he just rolls it down. He's smiling ear to ear, and he points at the calf and just says, it's nice to meet you, beautiful calf. I'm like, oh my goodness. So literally ever since October, they've been touring, going across the country, and I've been halter broking old Pony Boy, aka Mogul. Now that's what they've named him. But just I've been getting him ready, getting him halter broke. So whenever they were finally home for a couple days from touring, I was able to bring him home this past like about 2 weeks ago.
Oh my gosh, and I think that's what we saw on Facebook, probably the picture. So that was when they picked up the calf.
Yes, when we actually got to bring him to his property in Tioga, Texas, and I mean, it was so funny because we pulled up to their front door and we got to talking, and the first thing we saw when we pulled up into their driveway is their three miniature heifers that they have out there because that's their main business in their ranch that they've developed is they're into the miniatures. And I think it's hilarious because their backstory for wanting Pony Boy, now Mogul, is that they had a longhorn steer as a pet. And they have him now on his wall taxidermied, and he was 34 years old when he passed away. But he would come up to their back porch and knock on the window and get treats from their back porch. So whenever he passed away, Mary Travis was like, I need another pet. Even if it's a bull, I need another pet. And she's always wanted a Brahman bull, and of course, for some reason, she saw the speckles too and just, like me, fell head over heels in love for the spots. And that's where it just all fell into place. They just fell in love with all that speckles in the ears, which made me so happy to be able to get Brahman and Brahman genetics over to a music country star.
Yeah. So at a big level though, I just love the main points of that story that you shared because yes, I mean, this is a country music superstar, and like everybody would be thrilled to sell a calf to Randy Travis, but when you started out, you said you had no idea it was Randy Travis and you
Absolutely.
mentioned they contacted you in October. And how long did you spend nurturing this contact? October till June? What, that's 9 months? And so it sounds like kind of their customer pathway. Did they contact you over Facebook or how did they initially contact you?
Yeah, the initial message was over Facebook, and then once, of course, they set in stone that they for sure were interested in Pony Boy and wanted to come see him. That's when we crossed over into the text pathways. But even still, then, whenever me and Riley were texting for 2 weeks, scheduling the right time for them just to come view Pony Boy and make sure he was the right calf, I didn't realize it. But I even had a message from Mary Travis on Facebook, like, "Oh, we're so excited to see Pony Boy," and I still looked at that message before I even saw them in person. Oh, Mary Travis. Huh, she has a picture with Randy Travis. Oh, that's cool. It still just flew over my head. So looking back at it now, I'm just still like, it's still just a surreal, mind blowing experience.
Yeah, so I love the fact that it sounds like it was someone who, a new breeder that caught the beauty of Brahmin, caught their eye. They reached out to you. You did an amazing job of helping educate them, teaching them about the breed, being patient, inviting them to your ranch. And you even said you delivered the calf to them. So that is like customer service level 100.
Thank you so much. That's the thing with anybody though. Like even before I even knew who Randy Travis was, like, yeah, come on anytime you can. Whenever they're ready, we'll deliver them hand since you're just in Tioga. Like I just always want to make sure everybody has great customer service because I was blessed with my first cattle that I first got into. Like everybody I dealt with, any questions I asked, anything that I needed, favors. The people that helped me when I first got into business were so kind and so helpful. I just want anybody, whether they've had 40 years experience or 4 months of experience, to have a wonderful just experience and be able to ask any questions and just feel open, and just having that whole process be smooth free, and knowing that it's a heck, even when it's like, a celebrity like that, that's a trusted experience. It makes me feel like I did even my job correctly, even if it is just the breeder.
Yes, absolutely. I know we serve clients, I guess, in two types of capacity. So a lot of people, when they contact us, if they contact us and they're asking for heifers, they literally want to come that weekend, and they want to know what we have right then and there, and they choose their cattle and they load them out that weekend. So that's kind of our typical process. The time frame is pretty short. But sometimes we do have people, and especially new people, if you're researching jumping into a breed and making a big purchase, you may want to take that time to think through it, make a plan. You're not going to pull the trigger on purchasing the animal in 5 days or less, you know? So I just love that you stuck with this for so long through this period, and because really for a new breeder, that's a great plan, inquire with a breeder, get to know them, make a personal visit to their ranch, decide if your values align with each other, and then decide to purchase from them. So it's a great story. I love it.
Thank you. And it's always been just, it's been a very, like I said, very eye opening, very surreal, and I've just enjoyed the whole entire experience so much. It's been really, really fun. And especially we got to have new friends, new business acquaintances through it. Mary Travis is wonderful. So is their stepson. It's great to be able to open your horizon to new areas like that. And I mean, like you said, with your business, it's sometimes a short period, but the clientele and the quality, and you even have international sales. Like your ranch and business. That's why I said I've looked up to it. Like whenever I first got into the cattle business, to why I'm still here is because I'm honestly redheaded and hard headed. Like I wanted to prove people wrong. That was my thing. Like, yes, I know I'm new. Yes, I know I'm young. Yes, I know I'm a woman and it's just a one woman show, but I can do this. This is nothing. All I can, like cows, raising them, psh, I got this. You know what I mean? It was just one of those things where I had to prove the people or the naysayers that even if it was just a handful of them, I had to prove them wrong.
You mentioned something too just now where you said, I think you said either you or the clients were really drawn to the speckles and the ear. And I have to be honest, that is a polar opposite of what I am drawn to. I grew up drawn to like a solid gray animal. But it's cool that there are opportunities for people to have different preferences, and even though you may be breeding two different types of cattle, at the end of the day, we all love cattle and we can all be friends. But I would love to hear your perspective of why those things stand out to you or what you're looking for. And okay, let me back up with this too. I think we should probably have you list the different breeds of Bos Indicus cattle that you raise, right? Because you're raising more than just Brahmin, right?
Yes, ma'am. That's what I was just thinking. I was like, wow, that does open the wormhole for all the answers. So what I personally have right now, I had my main program was American Brahmin. Those were my first heifers that I got. But my bull, he is half Sardo Negro, which is an amazing, I won't say new, but it is a somewhat new breed to America that is primarily from Mexico, Brazil, just the South American areas. But what I currently own, I have the Brahmin, Sardo Negro. I have some gear. I have some Indo Brazil. And then the one animal that I have been side eyeing, which it basically looks like a gray Brahmin, but they're a goose rat, and they have horns going straight up almost. Let's try to think of the best way, but I guess like a mixture of roping cattle and longhorn. But what got with those speckles and what made me fall in love with it was I saw right after I got into Brahmin, and this is whenever I didn't even own my own animal yet. I was helping my friend with her program. I stumbled across Mass Mariachi, who was actually the first Sardo Negro bull ever imported into America by Ricky Butler at Butler Farms. And when I saw that bull, something about just his phenotype, his color, of course, the color. I mean, me and my speckles, his beef, just everything about that bull just screamed regal and elegance to me. And that was like my first, I want to say, obsession into this deep, dark hole that I fell into was that Sardo Negro Bull Mouse Mariachi. So whenever I saw him, I was like, well, my bull I currently have is this half Sardo Negro. And I love the beef on American Brahmin. That's something you just cannot beat. If you want actually a Brahmin that's beefy or just a Brahmin type, you can't go wrong with like BRC or V8, those type of genetics. You're gonna find your top tier right there. But yet, if you want to add a little bit of some exotic or some speckle to it, man, that Sardo Negro into Brazil, those breeds, I have not been wrong yet, and I knock on wood, of course. And that is something to just really put some color on them. And if you that's your style, of course. If you like dark gray Brahmin pigment, like the dark grays, amazing. I've seen some Sardo Negros that came out just the same color as a beautiful dark pigmented Brahmin, but man, they have that long ear that the people like me and the more, I want to say like the exotic breeders that are really primarily into the Indo Brazils and the gear, they just strive for. I don't know that, it's like what you said, like your primary interest is the gray Brahmin, and that's like, and especially just the reds too, but when it comes to speckles, it is just a completely different ball game because the regular Brahmin shows and everything, they're just non-existent. And that's one of the reasons why when I started getting into this, like what is uncommon? What is different? What is something that I can start producing that you just don't see every day? Which I'm about to get, let's see here, 23 head of Sardo Negro. So at least I have some fully 100% imported Mexican Sardo Negro genetics. But I like crosses. I like to be able to say, well, this one I specifically bred to try and put some more beef into it. Like two of my calves I have on the ground right now, they're speckled up. But if they were solid gray or solid red, you'd think those were some really, really good, just plain, I won't say plain, but just American Brahmin. And it's just the way, like how people will use Brahmin Bull for hybrid vigor on Hereford and Angus. I feel like having that little bit of mix with even the Sardo Negro with Brahmin, it provides somewhat of a hybrid vigor even for the Brahmin. It enhances the best parts of Brahmin. It takes the best parts of Sardo Negro, and you get this strong, beefy, colored up, long eared calf that is just, it just has all that umph and presence that I've been trying to produce at least. But I've only had my first calf crop going on my second, and I've just been so pleased and so happy with what my mind came up with and what it actually produced and what hit the ground. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm loving this. I'm just eating this conversation up because so you probably have never taken the AJBA Herdsman quiz, but it's like a contest they have at the Youth All American. If you go, you should take it because they do offer an adult version. But you can bet that on the Herdsman quiz, there's going to be a question of what are the four breeds that make up the American Brahmin as we know it today. And it's like Gyr, Gujarat, Krishna Valley, oh, and Nellore. And I think every AJBA member can recite that in their head, but very few may actually know what those are and what they look like. And, when you said you had a Gujarat and you were describing their horns, I can picture that picture totally in my head because if you look through the old Brahmin journals at like 3X Ranch, which their herd was Brahmin, but it had a heavy Gujarat influence and they didn't dehorn a lot of their cattle. You can find those pictures and they are some of the most majestic animals you could ever see. I mean, just those big Gujarat their horns. And Brandon and I, we joke a lot of times, like if we ever got to a point where we're super financially sound and we know we're keeping these heifers, we're just not going to dehorn them and we're going to let their horns grow because they're beautiful.
It really is because it's not something you see every day.
Yeah. And so you have gear, right? Describe what that looks like because visually, I'm having a hard time picturing what a gear looks like.
The first thing I always start with a gear with their most identifying factor to me, because gear, their primary colors are white and red, red. They don't have that black dominant trait in them. But the one factor they have is what I call a dinosaur brow bone, or just that big brow bone that just protrudes out, and then their horns set backwards on their head, going backwards. But their brow bone, their forehead, that is their most identifying factor to me to be able to differentiate between that being an American Brahmin, an Indo Brazil, Sardo Negro, anything is whenever they have that more pronounced sticking out forward brow bone. And I absolutely love that little exotic look to it. I think it just adds a lot of character and you can just look at it and go, oh, that is something different.
And so their horns point down, right? The Gujarat horns would point up, the Gyr horns point down due to their head shape.
Yeah, they're due to their head shape and like how their brow bone just protrudes out so much, it causes those horns to be more offset towards the back. And when they are pointing downwards, they go down and then kind of like you've seen like the Texas Longhorns, where instead of going up, they're kind of doing that going down and behind their head and turning kind of look. That's essentially like what gear horns are starting to are doing. They go behind their ears and then they go back and kind of curl. And of course, I've seen them do other, fancy ways, different ways, whatever the horns decide to grow. But that's like their primary breed trait for gear is the milk production. They're more on the slender, not so beefy side. They are just smaller frame cows, but their head has that dinosaur brow bone, as I like to call it. That is just the key identifying factor to me for them.
Mm-hmm. And they're beautiful too. So in red Brahman breed character, a lot you hear people talk about the roll to the head. I don't think it's a factor now in color classification, but when ABBA was doing color classification and they're trying to like evaluate breed character of a red Brahman to determine if it's more red or more gray, shape of the head was a factor. It still may be. I don't know. I don't keep up with it, but that's coming from the influence of the Gyr cattle originally in the breed, so that's really cool. I like one with a little bit of shape to its head. I think it gives it old school breed character. I love it.
That's exactly it. And you actually got to see that bull that me and my fiance got to show for Ricky Butler at the Bos Indicus show. He isn't gear, but he does have that half an allure to him, which you could tell by his head and how his eyes set in that he had that more exotic and more not typical Brahmin head. Like his eyes and how his brow bone protruded out just slightly bit. And that's what I like about it. Is like you can have your standard American Brahmin that I love. I cannot get enough of them, and then you can see stuff like that and you just, side eye and go, that's a little different, or it has that old school look to it, which is just not so common these days.
Mm-hmm. Have you seen any, or have you done any interbreeding or crossing within these different breeds? I've got a friend who lives in Guatemala that he breeds American Brahmin to Gujarat. And then I think he also breeds American Brahmin to Nellore. Just trying to infuse, like you mentioned, some hybrid vigor in different bloodlines and things. Have you seen anything like that in the USA or tried that?
Oh, I have a couple of little experiments going on in my pasture, but the person that I can hands down my hats off that has an amazing program, an amazing mind for breeding and refining and just fine tuning the American breed with all these different Bos Indicus breeds, and that is Ricky Butler. What he has going on over in Hugo, Oklahoma is some of the most fascinating and phenomenal work I have seen. What he really likes to do is because American Brahmin, we're not paying, I guess, as much attention as we should be on their teats and their udder. Well, Ricky Butler has been taking gray Brahmin and red American Brahmin and crossing them on the lower bulls, and that's of course shortening the ear a slight bit, making it look more like the earlier American Brahmin that around here. But it's making their udders and their teats and their feet just so refined and perfecting them, and you'll see them full grown and go, that just is an American Brahmin. But whenever you pull out their finer details of their genealogy, you go, oh, wow, this is completely different than anything you see down here. Or he will take one of his gear bulls and put that on red Brahmin. He just has how his mind works on seeing the pros of each breed and then seeing the cons and being able to pair each animal for the best possible outcome is amazing. His mind works phenomenally, and his program, I recommend anybody, if they're somewhat near to Hugo, Oklahoma, Mount Vernon, please go check out Butler Farms, Ricky Butler. His program, his mind for if you're looking for that crossbreeding within the Brahmin breeds, he's got it figured out. He really, really has the mind and has just perfected the art of it, really.
If there's anyone who understands the need for branding, it's a cattle rancher. For 25 years, Ranch House Designs have been crafting custom logos for ranches just like yours around the country. And there's nothing more important than the right logo for building your brand. A logo is the handshake your ranch needs to capture the attention of potential clients and customers. So, turn to Ranch House Designs to make the solid first impression your ranch deserves. Let's get branding your ranch today. Go online to ranchhousedesigns.com.
I'm curious, have you been on any trips internationally to some of these countries that they use these breeds more often? Or if not, is it on your bucket list to do that?
Oh, I haven't gotten into yet, but man, it really is on my bucket list. Like the Sardo Negro show is coming up, or the Bos Indicus show down in Mexico is coming up in October, and me and Ricky Butler have been talking about it. And just anytime there is a like, even the one that is coming up in, oh no, I forgot. It's in one of the Asian countries, but they are very huge in bread and Brahman and the India Brazil, and especially just the milking side of things. It is a huge bucket list goal to where anytime I have the opportunity to make it, I would love to go and travel and see the different parts of the world with how these cattle thrive in those different parts. Because I mean, you have Brahman, Pakistan, Thailand, especially they're everywhere. So to be able to travel and go to all those different parts of the world to see how the Brahman and the Brahman breeds excel would just be mind blowing to me. It's definitely on my bucket list because I'm down to Brahmin, for the rest of my life. This is gonna be something I'm gonna work with and improve and strive to better for the rest of my life. So to be able to travel and see different breeders from different parts of the world and even just see how they do their ranch or how they do business, it's just mind blowing to me to think about all the possibilities because it's endless.
I know the show you're talking about, and I can't name it myself, but it's that show in Mexico where they show all the Cebu breeds. I would love to go there myself. Maybe we could go in the fall. I mean, because that would be,
Okay, let's plan for it. It's about time to start planning.
yeah, I know, time to make a trip. Well, let's kick it in another gear. You mentioned the Bos Indicus International Show, and we are huge fans of that. We've been both years to it. Would you talk a little bit about that show to our listeners, what it is, how it's different, and what y'all have planned for it in the future?
Yeah, so I think I need to start with just a little bit about our association. So, Bos Indicus International is essentially like the American Brahmin Breeders Association, but it's more catered to all of the Brahmin breeds and like how the name suggests internationally. So we deal with Brahmin, India Brazil, Gyr, Nellore, Sauter Negro, any of the Bos Indicus breeds. We love, we adore. You're accepted no matter what, and that's one of the things we wanted to be about. Is that even if you're new, don't know much, old, everybody has the resources with us. If you need to contact anybody, we're going to be there to help anybody. But with our show, man, we've been needing to get more publicity because most people don't know about the different Bos Indicus breeds. So being able to get the publicity and get the name out there just for people to go, huh, Bos Indicus, what's that? Like, we know Bos Taurus, and that starts the wormhole down or at least the rabbit hole of what are all these different breeds. But with Bos Indicus International, we have also the Red River Brahmin Alliance that we love to pair up with that show. And it just opens the door for Brahmin breeders to come have our field days, as me and Ricky Butler like to say. We don't like to call it shows, or we want our breeders to get together, have a good time, a field day, and us just interact, mingle, and be able to learn from each other. That's one of our biggest things other than supporting the breed and helping it grow and just educating people. It's also just being able to support and help your local ranchers and just your breeders from either locally or internationally.
Yeah. So we have gone to that show twice now. I think y'all have had it two times. The Bos Indicus International part, where y'all do the judging based on EPDs. And I know you did it last year, but this year you were the spreadsheet operator, right? You were the one that was doing the final placing.
I was, and I was also the one that had to get all the information together. And I'm gonna be honest, that is very educating and it is quite hard. Let's be honest. It is once you got the hang of it and got to understand the formula and how you find the answer to like the EPDs and everything, man, it was a whole new world. I loved being able to see that new side of being able to view an animal, but I have learned so much from it, and it was an amazing experience to be able to help with the judging and help get the place cards and get the information all together for our awesome judge, Ernie Dominicus. He did a wonderful job. I'm thankful for him to be there to at least help me or be the person to speak for me, let's say.
Yeah, so if people are not familiar with that show, as an exhibitor, I can kind of walk through what we saw as an exhibitor, but we entered the show, and then before the show, we understand that the show staff, looks up the EPDs on every animal and enters them into a spreadsheet, and it's almost like the classes are air quote judged just solely on their spreadsheet rankings, like who has the best numbers. And then that's part one. And that's kind of done before the show. And then part two is the visual judging, which is just like any other regular show where the judge goes in and ranks the cattle, first through last in his visual placings. And then you entered those numbers into the spreadsheet. And then the formula, I guess, combines those to give you a final ranking. Is that a fair summary?
That's precisely how it works. That's exactly how it works.
So I was curious, you had the EPD's part done, and then as you were entering the visual part, how much change occurs? Was it pretty much similar, or were how an animal ranks on the EPD side versus how they rank on the visual side sometimes completely different? Did you have any observations on that?
I did. So I did notice that if an animal did have more higher numbers on their EPDs, no matter whether the judge was swayed to their side or the opposite side, if they had higher EPDs, higher numbers, sometimes when you put in their judge placements for, let's say, the one with higher numbers as number two, it didn't affect the outcome. That animal still would be number one by whenever the formula is all said and done, which, like, one of the animals I could use for reference was one of your gray Brahman heifers, because I remember BRC, I forgot her name, but her EPDs were so wonderful. Like, her bull value, I remember it was like 112. I will not let that down because I remember looking at it and going, oh my gosh. And then her queen value was like 50 something. So whenever you put in that and then put in the final rankings and everything, she was still top dog. There was no denying it, no matter what. You cannot deny that this animal, genetically, physically, visually, was the better heifer. And I don't want to mean like, say that that's definitely my opinion as well. But whenever you look at the EPDs and the numbers, it really does kind of tell the story for you.
I've always been curious. I remember last year, it seemed like in some way this, I don't want to say like eliminated like overaging or, eased it, but maybe it did, because I did notice in the younger classes, it seemed to shake things up maybe a little bit. You might see an animal move from like sixth place to second place or vice versa, based on their numbers.
Precisely, it really does.
I also had someone ask me, "Well, can't numbers be manipulated?" And I'm like, "Well, yes, absolutely, they can be. Obviously, we don't manipulate numbers, but I mean, I guess if someone was like, "Oh, I am gonna win that Bos Indicus International Show 5 years from now," and that was their goal, they could definitely figure out a way to mathematically manipulate it. But right now, at least in these early stages, I really love this concept, and I appreciate y'all doing it. That's why we always drive 7 hours to go up there, because we think it's a really cool concept and we want to support it. We love it.
Here's the thing, when we first opened the idea, Ricky Butler was the one that brought it into play, brought it into mind. And of course, all of us were like big old question marks above our heads, like, por qué? Like, what is this? And whenever he started explaining it, it still didn't process through me and just the other board of directors' minds. We just were like, okay, we like the idea, we like the concept, but how would it truly play out? How would it truly work out? But with our first year of us trying it out, we were blessed to have PJ Butler as our judge for the Bos Indicus show. That man's brain is brilliant. I didn't have to do anything for him our first year. That was so funny. He pulled up there at 8 o'clock show day in a suit and slacks, dressed to the tens, and he had all of his information ready for him, like ready for the show. And even then, he tried to like talk us through his numbers and everything that he put together. We were just looking at him like, you didn't have your formulas. He's like, oh no, I just went to the Brahman website. I looked at the numbers, and it is amazing how from even last year to now, how it has become more known. And honestly, just the way the process works. And like you said, for people to be able to drive 7 hours just to come to the show because they like the way this new judging is being placed and how it's going, it's amazing. Because like with how you said, I think it's remarkable, just this way of where we can judge and bases off of the animal's numbers and how the genealogy and the genetics of the animal are, because that's what we want to breed better Brahman, the best we can get. And if the EPDs and the numbers are there, which anybody can go on the Brahman website or on their papers and see, and kind of start calculating themselves, I think it's a wonderful tool for just even the basic Brahmin breeder to kind of look at their EPDs and start studying them and going, okay, this looks really good. It's just a great tool and just a knowledge to start looking into.
Yeah, and it's only going to get more accurate as our breed gets more into DNA verification, because when we have the genomic EPDs, it'll be even more solid. It's going to be great. I love it.
I know. I'm very excited just for the whole entire future of Brahmin and all the Brahmin breeds, and just seeing how we excel and just keep growing and just improving all of those finer details.
Yes. So let's kind of move into our fourth segment. And you mentioned this a little bit earlier. We've talked a little bit about you got started as a woman, a single woman in the ranching, and people telling you you couldn't do it. And you said, I wanted to prove people wrong. And boy, I can relate to that statement so strongly, and you and I come from different backgrounds, but I'm sure we have both experienced so many of the same, gosh, I don't even know what the word is, but maybe comments that people have made, maybe unprofessionalism that people have directed towards us because we're women. I mean, these opportunities are getting fewer and far between, but I can think of numerous times throughout my life where some jerk man was, like saying totally inappropriate things to me, trying to get me to sell him cattle or whatever. It's hard, is my point. Literally just yesterday, I had someone call me and they meant it in a nice way, but they said that they had tried to call Brandon and tried to call Keaton to get an answer and they couldn't get either of them. So they guess they were stuck with me. And I was like, yeah, I guess so.
I was like, well, how lucky of you.
Yeah, but like it's every day almost. So I want to talk about that. Have you experienced any challenges in your journey with cattle? And do you have any advice to other women who might be listening to this and think, okay, I'm a single woman, I don't own any land, but I want to do this. Like, how do you do it?
So just like what you start off with, just from the comments and just the remarks from people, man, I hate to admit it, but I will say it. The cattle industry, whether it's for show, beef, anything, it is a male dominated industry. It really is. So even if I was, let's say, more experienced and I was born into the industry, born into cattle, it still would have most of the men side eyeing, going, well, she's a woman. Well, she's younger. Well, she's single. She hasn't had much experience. It really is a drive, especially for women or even, let's say, even men that are in the younger side. If they want to be in the breed and want to be in it, you just. I'm trying to think the funniest and best way to say it is ignore them. And if you're going to take their thoughts and their inputs to mind, use it as fuel to the fire, because that was my best way of putting it. Is whenever you have, because one of my favorite ways to learn about cattle was going to the sale barn and just sitting at the sale barn and listening and talking to the old men. And once you sit there and start hearing about how they have talked about the industry for their whole entire life, it really kind of makes you go, okay, well, how can I adjust it into a newer way that is more open to where, like you said, if I wanted to help a younger woman into this, how can I educate them and push them in a way to where they're not scared to want to get into the industry? And the best way I can say is this: you put your heart into it, you find your love, you do your research, it's it sounds like a lot of work, but reality, if you put into steps like, okay, well, I like Brahman. Well, let's start researching which breeds do you like? Do you like specific breeders? Do you like specific like all the different things that you can look into? It seems like such a hard thing, and I feel like I'm just rambling about it, but the women and men and just everybody, they just need to be more open minded. Just don't be afraid. Come in, like dive in head first. Like, what is worst you can do is just, okay, we have a bunch of cows and I don't know. I just feel like it is such a amazing industry. Even if you don't know what you're doing, step into it. There is people like you. There's people like Ricky Butler. There's so many actually amazing breeders that if you do have a question, just ask the question. Don't be afraid. And then the other great thing is that there's so many communities on Facebook that you can join, whether it's the different Brahmin breeders group pages or even some of your local cattle group pages. There is some great resources and some great people that you can meet through those pages just for the knowledge, the just what you like, everything you could use this pretty much at your fingertips is right. If you have a phone, an internet, computer, anything that you can want to accomplish, you can do it from social media or from online, whether it's research, wanting to promote yourself, building a brand. It is a amazing experience and an option and choice to be able to do it.
I'm wondering, as a woman, have you put any like professional safeguards in place? Like, traveling alone, or, one thing I do is if I'm like in an international country by myself, like I just refrain from drinking alcohol at all at that event, professional dress, anything like that that you feel like you've had to, adapt to or put in some safeguards.
Absolutely, especially if I am traveling to new places that if I'm alone and I'm not familiar with, it's always like you travel in the day, you don't be places at nighttime alone. Like there's always those simple safety measures for women. But when it comes to actually like going places, like I don't know if because like how you said whenever you spotted me, it was my American flag pants. Like I know that's one of the factors that women could be a little bit more softer and demure, and especially if you're going to be traveling or being in the business is just being a little bit more softer. But I've found out just from my own personal experience, if you're going to be raising Brahmin or at least in an industry, make a brand, make an image, make it something of yourself to where if you go somewhere, people go, oh, that's who that is. Or, oh, that's, you know what I mean? Like you are recognizable, whether it's from your cattle, your trailer, your appearance, whatever it may be. You need to be able to establish a name, a brand for yourself. So for women, especially if you're traveling, going places, of course, take your safety precautions. Don't drink if you're alone. Don't be going to gas stations, that are lit up. There's always those safety precautions. But I feel like women have the best way to excel in this area because we have fashion. We have the fun ways of being able to express ourselves, to be able to put that image out there. And of course, that was one of the silly things that I got talked down on me about was that I do wear bell bottoms. I do wear flashy colored pants and I have no problem standing out of a crowd because if you are able to stand out of a crowd proudly and confidently with just yourself, you can take your business and whatever you believe in and make it soar tenfold. If you have the confidence in your life and yourself to present yourself that way, and you have your industry, your cattle that you believe in just the same heart, you are going to grow exponentially. And I mean that for any woman, whether it's horses, cows, even if you raise silky chickens, because I'm in the silky chicken world. If you have established a name, a brand, an image for yourself, be bold, be loud, be proud of yourself. There is nothing to be afraid in that area because that all that's going to do is either, like we said, have the older generation going, ah, well, she should be wearing her jeans and whatever, you know what I mean? But having that remembrance for yourself, or people go, oh, that about her, that is an amazing step.
I love this. This is a great part of the podcast, and I hope there's so many young women listening because it was great. My daughter loves you, and she loves your belt that says Little Red because you have your red hair.
Yes,
I love that. I love how you are you, and you're unique, and you're just a great person in our breed, and I'm so glad that you are in our breed. I love how I kind of wrapping up here. You said use it to fuel the fire. Like use that whatever comments or haters or whatever, use it to fuel the fire. I think that could be like your motto because of your red hair and flames, and like that could be for you. It was great. Okay, so we're almost at the hour mark, and I like to wrap up with, is there anything that we've missed before we kind of do our last question? Is there anything that you wanted to talk about that we didn't?
Not, I think we touched all the subjects, but the main thing that just keeps circling in my mind is just where I came from and how I started. I just do not feel like that has was touched on, because it was like I had, not even focusing on myself, it's just for other people to be realized the position that if you have people saying that you cannot do this. And here's the thing, when I first started out with cattle, I only had 7 acres. So I was having people tell me, you cannot even have your 2 head of cattle, you can't do this, you are not experienced enough, you don't have enough land. Like, it was every single negative comment that you could hear to a woman, especially that you're too loud, you're too you're too flamboyant, you're too out there, just by the way I dress, and even all the way down to my hair. Like, having long, bright red, poofy hair was, it's a no no. You don't need to be that loud. And I just kind of rolled my eyes at it. I'm like, well, that's silly. I get that we've had these kind of a stigma with cattle and ranchers and people in this industry, but we're not doing that. Let's play a new part into this. We don't need to be wearing overalls and our, beat up boots. We can be still beautiful, fashionable women and still be able to conquer a cattle male dominated world. And that's just one of the things I really want women to understand, is that do not let anybody's opinion on what you do, whether it's cattle, horses, and anything, determine on what you want your heart and your dream to be. Because if you let other people's opinions decide what you're going to do, you'll never achieve your full potential in your dream. So if you are just a more quiet woman, focus on that, really drive about that. And then if you are someone who is more on the loud and, you know, dressing fun side of things, really play under that. Really show just your true character, because people love seeing who you really are. They love knowing who you are. And especially if you are true to yourself and who you are and what your business is, it's always better to be honest. Everybody says that, whether it's about yourself, your business. So if you are 100% honest about yourself and what you want to do, you can do it. That's my biggest thing I tell women, men, don't let negative comments get to you. Be yourself and you can do it.
Yes, that is an amazing way to wrap up. I love it. I was just laughing because I was picturing you and your amazing style and your style. Then I was picturing myself, and at my stage in my life right now, my go-to style is jeans and a blazer. So it's a little different, but the awesome thing is it's cool to have women friends in the business that love and support each other, and that's a really good thing. That's a really good thing. So we like to ask everybody when they're the last question is to tell us about your favorite, we say Brahman of all time, but I know yours might be a Sardo Negro or it might be a Guzarat, but what's your favorite Bos Indicus animal of all time?
It would definitely have to be the Sardo Negro. I really feel like they have that good mixture of what I look for in American Brahmin. They still have the beef type because they're not as slender, and of course don't put as much of their body energy into milk production. So they still have the more meat and fat and muscle on them. But then they have the longer exotic ear that I really, really, really like. I love how Brahmin have their more rounded shape ear, but then whenever you have that exotic ear, it just seems like you take the tip of the ear and you just drag it down. If you could just modify the ear, you just take it and drag it. And then, of course, the color. There is just something about how it's like rolling a dice with each calf. You don't know what you're going to get. You don't know if you're going to get an all white calf, an all black calf, a black and white calf, a white and black calf. It is a almost like a dream breed to me once I finally have gotten into it, because it is a best of both worlds. You can have horns, you can have polled, you can have solid color, you can have any of the mixtures, and I just feel like it is one of the most, I don't want to say influential, because it's definitely the most influential, because that's a personal opinion. But just to me, it's definitely been such an influential breed for me to want to strive and just want to better myself and my program, is being able to see, let's say, like the genetics that Ricky Butler has, Mariachi, and there's this another one called Gandelario, I think of as how I pronounce it correctly. It's just how most of these imported breeders, like there is a breeder down in Mexico, and his name is Michael Arambrio, an amazing man, probably the biggest Sardo Negro breeder ever. But his mind works like how you and Brandon's mind works with breeding. Like they really, really look at the animal and look at the bull, and man, they fine tune those details to try and produce the best calves possible. And that one single man in Mexico is where most of our Sardo Negro genetics here in America come from. And it's just amazing to see how much time and just thought process has gone from today's modern Americans or today's Sardo Negro back to what the breed was back in, let's say, the 60s and 70s when it was starting getting more familiar, and it's not just a gear, it's getting that name. It's kind of like how you're talking about the American Brahman and seeing how back in the day they had the more Gujarat type of ear horns and everything. It just is a phenomenal, everything about it is just phenomenal to me.
Oh, you can tell you have the passion for it. You feel about Sardo Negro the way I feel about, American Brahmin. It's I could tell the passion is there. It's amazing. Well, Hannah, we thank you so much for being a guest. Tell our listeners if they want to follow you on social media or follow your ranch, like what's the best way for them to keep in touch with what you're up to?
Absolutely. So my name is Hannah Hicks. I am on every single social media there is, but the best way to follow my ranch and my animals is my ranch's name is Diamond Double H Ranch, spelled out exactly like that. And we're on Facebook, we're on TikTok. Those are our two main platforms, and I try and stay updated and posting as much as possible. Like we have a couple of calves due here soon that are actually half gear, half American Brahmin. So this is gonna be very interesting to see what comes from that. We have Instagram as well. I keep forgetting about Instagram.
Awesome. Well, this was a great podcast. Again, thank you for being with us. And thank you guys for listening to Over the Hump.
You've been listening to the Over the Hump Podcast. Our passion is Brahman cattle, and it runs deep. And this show is about its rich history, industry trends, and stories that define the American Brahmin. We hope you've enjoyed the show. If you did, make sure to like, rate, review, and subscribe. We'll be back soon. But in the meantime, find us on Instagram and Facebook at Cutrer. See you next time on the Over the Hump Podcast.